to a show.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Mask Podcast. I hope everybody had a great week. I'm trying to be a lot nicer to y'all when I do these things now, so because I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much. This week on the podcast, it's been a anniversary style thing going on lately. I've been having returning guests on, marking 2-year anniversaries, and today's no different. Today's guest is going to be my good friend, Miss Teanna Taylor. And about 2 years ago was the first time I sat and talked with her on the podcast. And here we are again, doing it again. What's up, Teanna? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Really good. Thank you.
Good. Glad to hear. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this episode specifically is because I knew you had a sub-only super fight coming up, and I wanted to talk to you and get, kind of your experience with that and everything, and just, what all went into it, because this was, the first one for you. So,
Yeah.
I just want to know things like, how it differs from, doing your regular IBJJF tournament, the preparation stuff like that, having an isolated opponent that you're going to be focused on specifically, so I guess, the first question I want to ask about this sub only match, how was the prep different for you going into this?
Well, the sub-only match could have gone on for 10 minutes. That was the time limit. So I think the main difference was doing rolls in the gym for 15 minutes, because you have to be prepared to go to full time in case it goes to ref decision. So obviously you don't want to gas out. You don't want to, obviously you want to get the sub. Both opponents do, everyone on the card does, but everyone has to be prepared to fight to full time. So my rounds were longer. I trained more. This was something also that was arranged, really quite a few months ago. So I knew it was happening. My mindset was very much on it. And I did a lot more gi than no gi, because it was a sub only match in the gi. So I didn't train no gi anywhere near as much as I usually do. And yeah, the main thing was longer rounds, getting my cardio up, getting my stamina up, so that I, if necessary, I would be able to last the full 10 minutes.
Yeah, for some reason, I had it in my mind that it was no gi. So when I watched it, I was, like, okay, they do the walk down in gis. I didn't know that was a thing. And, then I saw the match start and I was like, oh, okay, I guess it was gi. I'm not sure where in my brain I got that, but it was still all cool, all the same. And when you're leading up and getting prepped and everything, going through the weight cut and everything and making sure you're on weight, was there any difference in, pressure with that, or was it just business as usual?
It's funny you mentioned the weight thing, because when Andy, the promoter, contacted me, this was back in late March, beginning of April. He asked me where I was based, and I said I'm British, but I'm based in Madrid. He asked me if I'd be interested in coming on the show. And I was like, oh, I want you so badly, but I've literally just had surgery because I had my 3 stomach operations. And he said, no, this will be for November. And I'm like, brilliant, count me in. But I let him know that at that time, I was 54 kilos, which is about 118 pounds. But my normal weight category is 64 kilos, which is 140 pounds. So while I had lost a lot of weight due to 3 consecutive stomach surgeries, I would, be gaining it back and would be fighting at 64 kilos, because 54 for me is extremely low, because I'm 5'7". naturally
Okay.
very muscular, and I was extremely, extremely small after the surgery. So I got matched with a girl who agreed to take the fight. That was all good. And yeah, I'd made a point of saying I will be competing at 64 as usual. But then as time went on, I was like, I'm not putting on weight. Like, what's going on? I'm not getting bigger. And several months had passed after the surgery. And I was getting quite concerned because, like, there are a lot of women who want to be smaller. I'm definitely not one of them. My jiu-jitsu style is very much strength and speed. Strength being quite an important part of it. Obviously, you need technique, but strength is part of my game with my powerlifting and everything. So I was like getting really concerned. I wasn't gaining weight, so I didn't have to cut weight. And because Lisa, my opponent, I think she weighed about, well, when we were matched, we would have been matched because we weighed the same. I came back to Andy later on and said, listen, I only weigh 54 kilo. But I was prepared to say, because I agreed to this, and it's obviously not Lisa's fault that I have had surgery, I'll happily take the fight at 64 kilo because it wouldn't be fair on her. He then messaged Lisa to find out what she weighed, and I think she'd cut a bit anyway for other competitions because she was competing, from what I understand. And he came back with 58. I was like, perfect. And he was like, are you sure? Because I can put it at 56.5. I was like, no. I said I would do 64. That's what I weigh normally. It's no one's fault. It's not my opponent's fault that, I've had this surgery. So 58, absolutely fine. I didn't have to cut weight at all.
Okay. Good. I mean, I think when people, when I hear about, more so in MMA, the weight cuts just getting brutal and just everyone suffering through all these things. You always think like, why are you doing this? So the fact that you didn't have to cut, at all, definitely had to, feel good going into the cage. Just, you don't feel depleted, or even just as you're going into the weigh-in, you don't feel that nervousness of, oh man, like I feel like I'm there, but what if something weird happens? What if I, picked up an M&M on the way in and then boom, blew up.
Mhm.
So with your fight week prep, did that differ, for this, as opposed to, again, any other competition, or, again, business as usual?
Fight week prep, I was really unwell, and that was really gutting. I had been ill previously, physically, just with the cold, nothing serious. Because my coach tends to get a cold every time I compete. So I caught it in Madrid before I flew, had to take some time off training, but I thought better now than fight week. Okay. So I had some time off training, I rested, etc., etc. But the day I was due to fly to London from Madrid, I could not believe that I was ill again, because there'd been 2 days where I was feeling okay, and then I got ill again. So fight week did not go as planned at all. So I flew into London first. I was going to train a club down south, near where my parents live, but I couldn't because I was just so drained. That's the thing about colds; they're not serious, but they drain you of your energy. And I'd been doing like 15-minute rolls in the gym, no problem at all, and I was just zapped. So when I landed in London, I stayed in bed literally till it was time to fly to Belfast, Northern Ireland. So flew into Belfast, but I knew that because despite being drained, I needed to get my jiu-jitsu in. So we have an affiliate club in Belfast called Stealth Northern Ireland. And there were two other people competing on the card, the coach, Carl Casey, and also a girl who was in a four bracket no-gi tournament called Rachel, and I trained there. I think I probably made everyone ill because I kept coughing. I never normally train when I'm ill, but obviously, circumstances aren't always perfect. You've just got to roll with them. It was a real shame because Gareth's parents flew over to Belfast. We never see them. We rarely see them. I very, very rarely go back to the UK myself. And I was just in the hotel. I was just in bed, laid up, just trying to preserve all my energy because I needed to be fit to fight, basically. And I didn't get to see, I saw very, very little of Belfast. And that was really discouraging and disappointing because part of the reason I didn't stay in County Derry had to do with, and that's where the event was, it had to do with flight times, but also, things to do, more to do in Belfast. But I literally saw nothing. I saw absolutely nothing. I briefly spent some time with Gareth's parents, but I needed to be laid up in bed. So that was really disappointing because you put in so much work and then you get physically ill. I just couldn't shake it, but I just did what I could.
Well, I think that's the thing, though, too. It's like, considering the circumstances, it's like, power through. And it's, I know you had mentioned that you weren't well that week as I text you. And ironically enough, I think everyone was sick because my daughter had a cold. I had a cold. Like, you all had a cold. And it's like, y'all are on the other side of the world. It's like, did we give you our code?
I still haven't entirely got my voice back to normal, to be honest. I lost, even like 2 days ago, I didn't have a voice at all. I was completely, when I was in Northern Ireland, I was very throaty and very croaky. But then again, coming back to Madrid, just completely lost my voice.
Yeah, I always feel like after a cold, it's like you recover, but then it's like for whatever reason, your voice is like, whoa, wait a minute, we're not done. We want to stay sick a little longer. I had to answer phones at work, and my voice was like, so I get you. I hear you. So when you were leading up to the fight, you did have an opponent change.
I did, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about, what took place with that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was traveling over from Spain. It cost a hell of a lot of money, and I mean a hell of a lot of money before I'd even got there. And I actually had a feeling the promoter thought I was going to pull out because he'd messaged me a couple of times saying, "Teanna, have you booked your flights yet?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're booked ages ago. I'm in. I'm definitely coming." And so I thought that was a little bit odd, but I had this this gut feeling. I couldn't explain it. I said it to Gary. I said to my coach, I said, "I don't know why, but this Lisa girl's going to bail. I can't explain it. I've got no reason to think it, but my gut is telling me she's going to pull out. She's not going to fight." And I thought, just see what happens. And then I get a voice message from the promoter to say that Lisa is being very flaky. She wants to do competitions with her friends. And I was thinking, are you 34 or are you 4? That was legit my first thought. I want to do competitions with my friends because the venue was scheduled and booked before the dates came out for the No-Gi Europeans. Okay, so I had committed to the sub-only show, and this was about, I think it was around April, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, the IBJJF published the official dates for the No-Gi Europeans in May. And as soon as I saw it, because I was going to do the No-Gi Europeans, but I saw it was exactly the same date as the sub-only. And there was no question. I've committed to something. I see it through. The Europeans is on every year. okay, a sub only invitational, you may not get the chance again. If someone like pulling out because someone dies, bereavement, pulling out because you're injured is one thing. Pulling out because you want to do a different competition, nah, I don't agree with that. But there were quite a lot of pullouts for the same reason. There were other people who wanted to do the Nogi Europeans, but from what I understand from the promoter is that these people pulled out much earlier on. My opponent pulled out 2 weeks before. So again, I wasn't actually surprised that she pulled out, but I was surprised that that was the reason why. He said to me that he's been doing this long enough now that when someone is as flaky as this Lisa girl was being, he needs to start looking for another opponent. So he said leave it with him, and he mentioned a lady called Caroline, who's Scottish. I know of Caroline. I've seen her on social media, and she's an active fighter. But even she was like, well, by this point, Lisa hadn't officially withdrawn from the competition, but Caroline was like, I'm in, but I need an answer either way because I've got childcare, I've got flights to book. So not only am I now being messed around, my potential replacement is being messed around because she can't book anything until Lisa confirms either way whether she's going to fight. And Lisa pulled out later that day and Caroline was in. So I had huge respect for Caroline because, 2 weeks out, I was looking at not getting a fight at all. And my personal circumstances in the run up to the fight meant I had sacrificed a hell of a lot on a personal level. So I'm going to be honest, I found it quite disrespectful on Lisa's behalf to pull out so late. But people do what they want to do, do what's best for them. I hope for her sake she didn't lose her first fight at the Nogi Europeans, but whatever. So actually on the day of the fight, I went over to speak to the commentator because he's on my social media. We've chatted a bit in the past, but we never met in person. And if I'm not mistaken, he's actually Lisa, who's my first opponent's coach. And he said to me, oh, next time you can fight Lisa. And I just looked him straight in the eye and said, well, I won't be fighting Lisa because I don't respect her. And I remain unapologetic for saying that because pulling out that late in the day, and okay, fair enough, she has the free will to do whatever she wants to do. But the fact is, I take competing really seriously. And if I'm flying over from Spain, why would I want to fly over and fight somebody who previously pulled out? How do I know she's not going to do the same thing again? So while I would love to be on the show again, if I'm invited back, I can't take someone seriously who pulled out 2 weeks before. It's as simple as that.
It's quite understandable. I mean, it's a fair answer. With the change of opponents, how did that affect your preparation and approach to the match from that point on?
In terms of game plan, it was exactly the same. I was aware that Caroline, my new opponent, is very au fait with fighting in the cage. So I knew she'd probably want me against the cage. And I have never fought in a cage. So I wanted to keep the fight more central. So to be honest, in terms of game plan, that didn't change at all. The only thing that changed was me being mindful of where I was physically stood in the cage. But she's she's slightly older than me, very active competitor. She had my respect before I even met her. I had a feeling we would get on really well anyway, because I've seen some stuff that she's posted on social media. So yeah, she had the cage to her advantage, but thankfully she didn't get to use it.
And once you found out that it was going to be in the cage, did that have any kind of effect on your thought for the fights? Like how you were going to approach anything in there? Because I know there was a later point where, you had mentioned, it's going to be in the cage. And then, from that point, it was like not much more, discussion about it. So, was the cage, was the fight being in the cage, an effect on you your preparation later on?
No, because simply because I don't have a cage anywhere around me. So I knew she had the upper hand in terms of experience being in the cage, knowing how to wrestle someone up against the cage, to take them down, to slam, to throw, etc. And I didn't have that. But what, you know, if you're not prepared to, play, you can't play the game if you're not prepared to roll the dice. So I was still in. I was just going to play my game, do what I was going to do anyway, even if it was on the mats. The only thing is, being in the cage is you're not reset back to the center.
Mm.
So there was at one point when I went to tripod sweep her, and she was actually able to grab onto the cage for stability. So, but I'm not used to fighting in the cage, so I don't really know how to use it to my advantage, if I'm honest. But it was a good experience. It was smaller than I thought it would be. But I could do very little to prepare for fighting in a cage because I hadn't been in one and I couldn't get in one.
And with the change in opponent, and I know you said, about 2 weeks out, you found out you're going to be going against a new opponent. Once you got in there with her, did anything about her surprise you? Once you got in the cage with her.
Well, I actually met her the day before. The thing that surprised me was how small she was. She's really small lady. And I felt for her because she actually was scheduled to have an MMA fight the Sunday before. So we competed on the Saturday. She was scheduled to have an MMA fight on the previous Sunday, but there was a mix up with the promoters and the weights that each opponent was told they could fight at. So Caroline had cut to 54 kilos and the other girl was quite a bit heavier. So Caroline's coach said she's not taking the fight. And what's ironic is I was 54 kilos, which is about 118, 119 pounds anyway. And I was actively gaining weight, trying to gain 4 kilos to get up to Lisa's weight. And then she withdrew. So, but obviously, when someone withdraws like that, you're never expected to suddenly drop 4 kilos or near that in 2 weeks, because that's unfair and ridiculous. That would never be expected of you.
So, with this experience that you've had doing the sub only match, would you do? Are you open to more sub only matches in the future?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good. And kind of going back to your prep for the match and everything, what was the hardest part about the prep for you? Just going through the experience period.
It was actually what was going on off the mats. That was by far the most difficult thing. The past, I would say, 2.5 months were really, really rough. Nothing to do with training. It did affect my training though, because as you know, I have been in full-time psychiatric care. My care was cut and I was removed. So I have spent the last 2.5 years of my life in a full-time psychiatric setting. I have, as you know, I didn't sleep in the hospital, which allowed me to train in the evenings, but I was having intensive treatment there. And I was being messed around so much. It was really, really distressing, because you show me how many people are willing to put their life on hold for an unspecified number of years to sort out their mental health. You won't find many. I am registered as disabled. So my permanent incapacity to work doesn't cover my rent. So I had to, but because I made this commitment to the promoter, I pulled my money together to make the trip to Northern Ireland. So that's also why it was kind of like, oh my gosh, I may not even have an opponent now. So it was really, really tough, because I even now still don't know what's going to happen with my care. And um, it was really, really dark, really, really dark. And my mental health spiraled quite a lot to quite a bad place. And it was most of all really frustrating because it's like I've always wanted to do sub only. I've said it. I've said it for such a long time. It's not really a thing in Spain. I've always wanted to do sub only. I'm prepared to travel to do it. And my mental health just wasn't playing ball. And it was so upsetting because it was something I wanted so badly. I wanted to do well. I wanted to showcase my jiu-jitsu, and other factors go. And these are not factors that are just like, oh, you can just push to one side. These determine where your life goes from this moment. Being in full-time care for over 2 years, not being able to work, not being able to kind of lead what most people would consider a normal life, and having that cut and literally leaving you with no answers was really, really hard. And I also know that part of the reason my care got cut is because I took this fight in Northern Ireland. So again, this isn't, obviously my circumstances are not Lisa's fault, but when Lisa pulled out, I was kind of like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I've lost my place in care because I'm going to Ireland and now I potentially don't have an opponent. And again, that's not Lisa's fault. You know, people have the free will to do whatever they want to do, but that was definitely a fact, because my psychiatric team told me that was one of the factors in removing me from the groups. So that was really gutting, really, really gutting. So it wasn't just sacrifice in terms of financial costs, but literally how I live my life every day. And I still don't know what's going to happen with that. So it was very, very difficult, to a very dark place, but I committed to this. It was a dream, always has been my dream. Wanted to see it through. There was absolutely no way I was going to pull out. Absolutely no way. No way in hell. I'd sacrificed too much. It meant too much to me. I trained really, really hard. Really, really hard. And that's also why it was really gutting to not be, also, aside from the mental stuff, to be physically unwell as well. It was just like a double whammy. I couldn't believe it, because no problem doing 15-minute rounds in the gym. No problem at all, you know. And then just the very nature of benign but rather pesky cold that means you can't breathe through your nose. And yeah, it was just really unfortunate. It was really unfortunate. But the main thing that affected me was what was going on with my psychiatric hospital. It was really gutting, because I just felt like this is an opportunity I've wanted for so long. And when I actually needed help the most, I couldn't get it. And my only other alternative was to go to the ER. If I go to the ER with my history, I'm not coming out. So that means I wouldn't be able to do the show. So yeah, I just powered through the best I could.
And that was one of the questions I was thinking about too, as well, is like with, the change of opponent and then just everything leading up and just all the turmoil and chaos. I was thinking, it's like, I wonder if there's any point that she even considered herself just saying, I don't want to do this. Like, this is too much stress. So, you know, just knowing that, that was going on. And then, you know, you're saying, hey, there's not even an option to pull out. You know, that's good to hear.
The thing is, though, I'm a blue belt. I've been training since 2014, but what a lot of people don't realize is because my coach is my partner. He's a first degree black belt. He was doing jiu-jitsu well before me. I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu when I met him. I got into it about a year and a half later. But I'm quite savvy into how things, with regards to how things work, because or people think, oh, if you're a blue belt, maybe be training 2, 3, 4 years. I've been training a long time, But also, even when I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu, I would see how things worked through my coach. And you pull out of a tournament that you've been invited, or a sub only that you've been invited to, well, good luck getting back onto that tournament. If it's not bereavement, if it's not injury, I did have good reason to pull out. People just thought I had a cold. Yes, I did have a cold, but there is absolutely no way in hell I'm pulling out of anything because of a cold. I said that to somebody and they'll be like, you'd be surprised. I said, listen, people do not pull out of sub onlys or comps because of colds. And she goes, yes, they do. I was like, nah, that's ridiculous. But it's the stuff you can't see. That's what was affecting me the most. Actually in the fight, I apologized to Caroline afterwards because I was coughing in her face. I didn't want to give up my grips. So I did have to apologize for that. But it was really, really tough in the sense that, like I said, my mental health wasn't playing ball. My psychiatric team who are in charge of my care, and this is not just one or two people, this is a team of people. Because people talk about mental health a lot, but mental illness does not go away. When people talk about mental health, you can have good spurts of mental health, you can have your ups and downs. When you have, I've got 4 diagnoses, 4, yeah, and I have to learn to live with that. And people get very complacent and they think, well, she competes a lot, she always steps up, she must be doing okay. Yeah, well, if you actually talk to me, I'm very open about the fact that I struggle. My Instagram and all my social media is very, very real. It's not a highlight reel at all. Yeah, I put my wins on there for jiu-jitsu when things are going good, but I also put when things are really shit as well, because I really believe in being authentic, because people can connect to that a lot more than this false social veneer of perfection, because it does not exist. But there was no way I was going to pull out for a cold. I know there was some concern from other people, including my coach, about me doing the comp, but I was like, nah, if I pull out, I will not get invited on again. When my original opponent pulled out, I had a hell of a lot of people asking me what had happened, why she pulled out. And I was just honest and said she wants to do the Nogi Europeans, that's up to her. She can, she has the freedom to choose. But what's interesting is that there were 2 or 3 people who asked me why she pulled out, and these people are promoters of other shows in England. So it really does show you don't know who's looking at your page or who has their eye on you or who is considering you for a sub-only show or something that they're planning in the future. So I'm really glad that I didn't win. I was gutted I didn't win. I'm not going to lie about that. I am really honest. I am honest. I absolutely went there to win despite everything going on. I didn't win. Caroline won fair and square. But there was no way I was going to pull out. No way.
From this experience, what was a big takeaway for you? Like as far as learning and seeing something different in it all, and just moving forward, with your approach.
I know exactly what I need to work on. It highlighted, the fight highlighted where my weaknesses are and what I need to work on. Some of them I was aware of anyway, but there are a few other things that came up that I'm going to work on in the gym. So that's definitely a positive, even though, as I said, I didn't win. Also, I'm no longer afraid of fighting in a cage. And that's a big thing for me. That's a big thing for me because it was a first time. And just, again, just stepping up, always stepping up, because you have a choice. Some people have diabetes, some people have a heart condition. You either let these things limit you or you step up anyway. In my case, I am quite open about mental illness. I do get judged for it, but that's not my problem. I have a choice. I can compete or I can complain. I choose to compete. I could sit at home on the sofa, say, oh, I'm not well, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? I've never done any competition where I've been mentally 100%. Never. And I've done a lot of comps. I've done a hell of a lot of comps, but you can make excuses and say I'm not gonna step up because of this, that, and the other, or you can just give it your all and fight with heart, and that's what I do every time, win or lose.
Is there anything in all of this experience that you wish you had done differently?
That I had done differently, I would definitely say not had medication changes in the run up to the fight. Definitely. That was a big, big mistake. Big, big mistake, because as well as having a cold, which is one thing, which is, a benign thing. Loads of people have colds. My breathing was affected by some medication, and that was a big mistake. So that's why I was also really gutted, because I felt like um, I had let myself down in the sense of I should have waited until after. But again, it's a fine balance, because you want to be in a good mental state, but then you have to take care of yourself in order to fight well. And yeah, I should have left a particular medication um, out of the tablets I took before the fight. That's definitely a regret. But aside from that, there were the other things were out of my control, like being unwell. I prepared really well. Well, actually, yeah, I wish I didn't have to tap. I understand from one of the judges, I was scored the winner of the first. They score it like Polaris. So I won the first round. Caroline won the second round. But then I had to tap, so I didn't get to what would have been the third portion. So when I say round, it's 10 minutes straight, the fight. They don't, but they score. There are 3 judges. They score it in sections. Bless Caroline. When she passed my guard and was on top of me, my one contact lens came out, and I'm a -6, so that basically means I can't see anything at all without glasses or lenses. I lost the contact lens. Thought, this is fine. This has happened before. This is exactly why whenever I train and do comps, I have 6 pairs of lenses in my pouch. Okay. In my first Europeans, I lost a lens. It was fine, because then I subbed the girl and then the fight was over. I could still see out of one eye. But then I lost both my lenses, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not good. But by this time though, I had to tap anyway. But Caroline saw on my face that my lenses had come out, and we hugged at the end. She stood me up, she had to literally -6. I don't know what you know about glasses and lens prescriptions, but -6 is bad. She led me to the center of the ring. I can actually see the ref, even though he was standing there. So I'm facing the same way Caroline's faced me. The ref is motioning for us to turn around and face the crowd. Bless her. Bless Caroline. She physically turns me round. So I know her hand gets raised. So I always clap for my opponent. I always clap first. I clap for Caroline. And then she had to physically lead me out of the cage because I couldn't see anything. I can't see. She was an absolute sweetheart. A couple of people thought I was injured, but I wasn't. I just couldn't see. So I've had surgery on literally near enough every body part except for my arms and what else? Arms and feet, I think. None of it's been for cosmetic reasons, but I won't let anyone go near my eyes. I will not have laser eye surgery. So it's just something I would just have to deal with.
Yeah, that's something I have a big fear of and concern. As you can see, I'm wearing glasses, and I think they did I guess the glaucoma test where they blow a
Yeah.
puff of air in your eye.
Yeah.
and every time they do it, there's a huge reaction from me because I'm not expecting it. And I jump and they're like, okay, we're gonna do the other eye, and I'm like, no, you're not. You're gonna try. And I think the last time I went to get my eyes checked, uh, the doctor says to me, was like, so we're gonna go ahead and just say you're probably not a candidate for contacts. The way that you reacted, I was like, yeah, I don't want nothing in my eyes. I don't want you considering LASIK for me. Or like, no, I'll wear these glasses. I'm all right. I can see without my glasses though pretty well. I think my eyes are just lazy now because I'm so used to them. But I can take these off and read all the words up on the wall up here in my basement. So I'm not that bad. I'm not that
I'm
bad, but
really
I
bad.
understand.
I can only see colours. I can't tell if
Mm,
someone's male or female. You literally have to be about to kiss me. You have to be like here for me to see anything. It is. I'm very, very short sighted. So Caroline was an absolute sweetheart, God bless her, because she realised that my lenses had come out and she let me out the cage because they had the photographer and the cameraman in the cage. So the spotlight was so yeah inside, but then around the steps, around the cage, it was all really, really dark. So bless her, she led me down, she took my hand, she led me down. I'm like, I can't see anything. But then it was fine. No injuries, nothing serious. But
oh,
yeah,
good, good. Um, and moving forward, I know you said you would absolutely do another sub only
yeah.
match. Just it sounded like with the experience of it all, in cage and with your opponent, despite the change, it sounds like it all went well. So I'm happy to hear that.
I
Um, you
didn't
know,
show. I showcased some of my jiu-jitsu, but not as much as I would have liked. That was disappointing. That was disappointing.
sure.
I am really disappointed I lost. Definitely, I'm not going to lie about that. It was a great experience. Don't get me wrong, but obviously, of course, you want to win. Anyone who says they don't want to win is I just don't believe them. I don't believe them. So I showcased some of my jiu-jitsu, but there's a lot more to show.
Sure. It's weird with the whole like if someone says they don't want to win, it's like why are you even doing it then?
Yeah,
They
exactly, exactly.
like why show up? Why go? So that is bizarre. It's I don't know, but I'm glad the experience. You had some takeaways from it. You went in with this, and you know knowing that there's a lot going against you, just kind of prepping, getting there, and here we are. You know,
No, you got
sure,
to shoot. You got to shoot your shot despite the odds. You really do,
absolutely.
because if you find me someone who's fought under perfect circumstances, I think you'd be hard pushed. Yeah, I know people. Everyone has issues. Everyone has something going on. It's very true to say the severity of what's going on varies wildly from individual to individual. But again, you either take the risk or lose the chance. And I wasn't prepared to lose the opportunity. The Euros is on every year, whether it's the Nogi Europeans or the Gi Europeans, it's on every year. Invitational sub onlys to be invited on, that's something pretty special for me.
And for you, what's next as far as competitions?
Okay, so in 2 weeks' time, there's the AJP Valencia. I don't, I have to decide by Monday if I'm going to compete. But again, I need to find out what's going on with my care. And I don't know any of that yet. So I might go to Valencia anyway because one of my friends is competing. She's coming over from Holland. So I might go and see her. I'm definitely doing the Europeans in France, in Paris in 2023 in January. That's a definite. Whether I compete more this year, undecided yet. Depends what the comp is.
Well, I mean, we're getting towards that end point right now, so of the year. So, you know, preparation, get ready for 2023. It'll be here
Yeah,
before you know it. So, um, but yeah, otherwise, yeah, it sounds like again a really good experience. Watching the match, myself, I don't know that I've ever seen you compete. So it was definitely a fun experience just seeing it. And
Fun or funny?
uh, well, so I will say when you were being guided out of the cage, I was like something's not right there.
Oh, yeah, I
Like
couldn't see.
it's like I was sitting there looking like she's walking like my grandma right now. Like what the hell's going on? Then hearing after the
Oh my
fact, you
god.
lost your contacts. It was like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. Versus just like, I mean, like she's taking this loss very hard. Like she turned into an elderly woman. Um, but no, I'm glad that you enjoyed every bit of it, and you know, I'm looking forward to your next sub only match. You know, and seeing the growth from the first experience to the next experience. And you know that's one thing I've always noticed with you with um competing and training is the game plan stays the same. you know
Oh, it's actually
so
going to change. It's going to change for the
oh
Europeans. Yeah,
oh
definitely. Definitely. Yeah, it's changing. It's changing. I've got some good things up my sleeve. Had a
okay
long talk with my coach. And yeah, Europeans, you'll see a different fighter. Definitely.
okay well, I'll be on the lookout for that. I'm excited
Yeah.
now. Like, it's like getting a new chapter to a story. It's like, oh, okay, we changed this up a little bit. So cool.
Yeah,
That's good to hear.
definitely. Yeah.
All right. So, Tiana, this is, as always, been a fun talk with you. I love having you on the show. So thank you for doing this. You have any shout outs or mentions you'd like to throw out there before we get out of here?
Yeah, shout out to my sponsors, XS Guard, who've just sorted me out with some amazing new mouth guards, which I can't wait to showcase on the mats. Shout out to Hyperfly Europe for their continued support. Also, shout out to Enhance CBD for for backing me. And I've got to have a shout out to both you and also Andrew Quinn, who's been in my corner since the beginning, and my sports psychologist, Dr. Carl Bescoby, for supporting me. And finally, thank you to Andy for inviting me onto the show.
Awesome. 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 And thank you for the shout out there as well. And I'll be sure to put mentions and links in the show notes. And as always, for everyone listening, thank you for the support. Thank you for your time. And, thank you all just for helping me keep this show going. I always joke and say, if there are only one person listening, I still do the show. Probably not. But, you know, everyone who tunes in and listens each week, I do appreciate you all. And, I don't know, it makes me smile. So thank you. And also the guests, everyone who gives me their time. Shout out to you all. So especially you, Tiana. Thank you. Uh,
Thank you for having me.
Always. Anytime you say, hey man, I want to record. They're like, all right, just give me a time as long as it's on Sunday. Um, anytime, as long as it's Sunday, we can do this. If anyone has any questions, concerns, criticisms, reach out to me. I'm available on bjj.wiki on Instagram and also Off the Mats podcast on Instagram as well. You can email me offmats2020 at gmail.com. I'm starting to use that now. So I'm proud of myself. Thank you guys. I want to give a big shout out, as always, to my guest here, Miss Teanna Taylor. You can all find her on Instagram as well. I'll put the links in the show notes, but that's Teanna _Taylor _
Underscore.
BJJ. Oh my goodness, look at that. Oh, I'm starting to remember stuff. I got a good memory, y'all.
I think I've been
Um,
on here enough.
as I was saying, I was like, oh my goodness, do I remember this? But you all can find her on Instagram. And another big shout out to my guys over at Nerd Rage Radio, Bobby, Chris, Joe, Marilyn Fell, even. Thank you guys. You guys are great. You got me going with this podcast and stuff. And here I am now. I won't shut the hell up about it. But thanks, guys. Also, big shout out to my other podcast, So You Like Horror. It's a scary movie podcast. In the most recent episode, we were talking about Event Horizon. So go check it out if you're into space horror. That's a fun episode. I got to do that episode with my good friend Manuel. So go check it out. Otherwise, I love you all. You guys are great. It's a fun experience each time. You guys keep listening to this, and I'm going to keep making the show. Appreciate the hell out of you all, and bye.
They were with it. Now let me sing a song.